Every teacher has his or her own teaching philosophy. I too have my own teaching philosophies. I would just start with my powerful faith and trust in the future. I may not be see the fruit of my labor, but my call is to plant and nurture the seeds. Understanding the pace. All my students, they really do not learn at the same pace. So understanding their interests, their abilities, their prior knowledge, they all help me in understanding and finding out the pace of each of my students. I try to understand the individual differences in my students. So therefore, I avoid sorting out my students according to their performance. That may sometimes create an unhealthy competition in the class. Uh, I try to impart my students to the best of my knowledge so that they should be able to think critically, they should be able to analyze, they should be able to apply and evaluate the knowledge. I love my subject, and that's why I know how to, inculcate the interest of my students in whatever I'm teaching. According to me, a good teacher should be a good learner. A stagnant society never grows. Now, I am always willing to learn from my students as they are learning from me. A teacher should be a role model. For instance, if I am teaching my students to not to litter the school campus and I am seen throwing maybe a packet of chips or my any stuff in the corridors, it will be a contradiction for me being a role model to my students. Lastly, I would really like to emphasize on a very, very important, philosophy of me as a teacher, being patient. I try to be patient when my students, they repeatedly ask me the same question if they are unable to understand. So being patient is really very, very important for a teacher. The key components of a good lesson plan could be classified as follows. According to me, there could be three key components. First, I'll say the learning objectives, the activities, and third is the tools to check the understanding. I'll start with the very first objective of mine, the learning objectives. Identifying the learning goals is really important for a teacher. It could be done by asking yourself what you want your students to accomplish at the end of the lesson. Time management is really important while you are planning your learning goals. Secondly, when you talk about activities, according to the different age groups, the activities could be planned, and this should be actually the largest section of your lesson planning. Diverse kind of activities should be planned to explain your topic, and by using different learning and teaching activities, a teacher can reach a wide range of learning styles. Activities should be interactive and they should be related to the real world situations. For instance, if we talk about role play, say I'm teaching a topic of oxygen carrying capacity of blood. What I'll do is I'll divide my class into groups, and each group will have a student assigned as hemoglobin, one student assigned as oxygen, the temperature, the concentration. And when they all know what role they are playing and when they try to enact, I think this could register in their minds for longer period of time. Lastly, I would like to talk about the tools to check the understanding. This is the vital, part of an effective lesson plan. This part will help a teacher to understand how much teaching learning is being done and how much the students are able to retain. This could be done by using various tools. For instance, for example, we can just say asking students series of questions, giving a small diagram to the students and asking them to label it, giving them a sheet having multiple choice questions and asking them to work in pairs and identify the correct answers. Or a class discussion could be one of the tools for identifying how much learning is being done. A teacher should be a motivator. I totally agree with this statement. Apart from nurturing our students with the knowledge we possess, it is the moral duty of a teacher to counsel, to motivate and uplift the morale of our students. Every student in India is a born aspirer to be a doctor and pursue medicine or be an engineer. In my entire career of 11 years, I have tried to motivate my students, but there is one incident that I always remember and recall. This incident is about one of my students who was in class 9. And this girl came to me very tense, very discouraged, and told me that she aspires and aims to study medicine. But she was really afraid of most of the terminologies used in biology. And I tried to motivate her, and I told her that the subject can be really made easier by changing the way we learn. I started talking to her about making of mnemonics. For example, for learning all the characteristics of a living being, I just asked her to, why not making a mnemonics Mrs. Gren. And all these words, they were actually specifying one of the characteristics. M standing for metabolism, R standing for respiration, S sensitivity, etc. Similarly, I just gave her an example for learning a mnemonic called LORD, L-O-R-D, that helps her in recalling and remembering that left side of the heart carries oxygenated blood. Left, oxygenated. Right, deoxygenated. That forms the word Lord. Moreover, I tried to motivate her to go out in her garden and try to differentiate between the terms like reticulate venation in leaves and parallel venation in leaves. She can even look into the kind of roots that grass has and the roots that a simple herb has, that is the tap root and the fibrous root. Somehow she started following the steps that I discussed with her. And after many years, I received an email, and that email stated a letter of thanks. I was touched when I just came to know that this student of mine was now pursuing medicine in one of the renowned colleges in India. It was a moment of joy, a moment of pride, and this moment really motivated me to encourage those students of mine, those who have capability to pursue bigger heights but are afraid of one or the other subjects. So I purely believe that a teacher can bring about a change in a student's life.